2, 1.
Rabbi Sai, welcome back to Yerushalmi Sheviis. We are up to the 10th perek. Right, this perek talks about Shmitas Halvos, Shmitas Ksafim, when Shmita comes along and the debts get cancelled. Yeah, at the end of 6 years, you should make Shmita. Shamoy Kabal Mashayada Shiyasha Berev Laigas Israel V'Tzachim. You can't start claiming. It's a mitzvah to say. There's also Loisas, not to stop lending because you're worried the person won't pay you back when Shmita is coming near. Okay, this is a mitzvah that applies everywhere, not just in Eretz Yisrael. Okay, and Hillel of course set up a prusbul, which was a document where you're giving over your debts to Beis Din, and therefore the debts do not get cancelled. And we'll come on to all that. Right, now, just want to add, according to the Rosh, Shmitas Ksafim has got two parts. So the end of Shmita, the debt gets cancelled. And if the debtor wants to pay, you can say Meshametani. The Shmita debts is at the end of Shmita. During the Shmita year, if the debtor wants to pay, you don't have to say Meshametani, but the mother can't claim the debt. Okay? The halach is not necessarily like the Rosh and everything. We can write a prusbul all the year, basically until we write a prusbul at the end of Shemitah, right? There is the Shulchan Aruch Harav YCD should write a prusbul before Shemitah starts as well. I think Chabad have that many to write a prusbul at the beginning of Shemitah, but everyone else writes one at the end. Okay, and nowadays where Shmitas Ksafim is midrabanan, that's the idea of prusbul helping because it's a drabanan din. All right, let's see where we are. Sheviis Masechet Sheviis Daf. So Shmita cancels a debt which was with a document, but Shalom Bishta, or whether it was a verbal debt with no documentation evidence. Hakavas Hechanus. Now, if you have a person buys something in a shop on credit, and a debt builds up, so Eila Mashmetis, that doesn't get cancelled in Shmita. However, that's where it's like the credit from the shop. But in Asa Milva, if it was turned into a debt, Hareza Mashmetes, then Shmita does cancel it. Rabbi Yehuda said, if you bought on credit and then you bought on credit again a few times, Harishon Mashmit, then each time you buy on credit, the previous time becomes a debt, and that gets cancelled on Shmita. But it's only the last credit is still considered the shop's credit, which does not get cancelled during Shmita. Right? So he wants to say if there's one credit after another, the previous ones turn into a debt. Maybe he makes a reckoning. This is the amount you owe to date, and so on, and that's converting into a debt. Schar sacher, the wage of a worker who's not yet, the balabais is not paid in for his work, eila mashmit, that doesn't get cancelled in Shmita. Milva, if the worker changed the debt he changed the obligation into a debt by turning it into a debt, this liability, Hareza Mashmit, then Sheviis does cancel it. Rabbi Yossi says, Kol Haloshon, any job that has to stop the Sheviis because it's a forbidden job, like ploughing and so on, Mashmetes, then it gets cancelled. But he doesn't have to stop during Shemitah, it's a permitted job, then it doesn't get cancelled. Okay? Right. Now this is where you've got a person slaughtering a cow and you're dividing up pieces of meat for various purchases, and we're holding on the day which we think is Rosh Hashanah at the end of Shemitah. Now remember, we're talking about the 30th day of Elul, and therefore you think today is the 30th day of Elul, and therefore you have to pay, you receive some meat, you have to pay the debt. Now the question is, what happens if Beis Din added an extra day to the month of Elul, and Rosh Hashanah will be the next day? So the question is, what day are they on? Are they on Rosh Hashanah, and it's a completely new meat which they'll pay for, or is it still Elul, and therefore they've got a debt which will be cancelled because Rosh Hashanah is the next day and not today, right? We don't know. Remember, we didn't know when the witnesses will come, so they used to keep 2 days out of doubt, right? Which is why we keep 2 days out of doubt. Now, of course, you have months where there's 29 days. You have months where there's 30 days. Why is that? Because the difference between one moiled and the next is roughly 29.5 days, or to be exact, 29 days, 12 hours, and 18 over 44 seconds. And since we can't have a Rosh Chodesh starting the middle of the day, so that's why we have 1 month, 2 days, 1 month, 1 day. And of course, to get in line with the cycle, we have to add in 7 Adar Shenis, right, in 19 years as well, and to be in line with the solar cycle. So therefore, the 30th day from the beginning of the month sometimes might be the last day of Elul, and sometimes it might be the first day of the new year. So Rosh Chodesh was done through the Sanhedrin with Eidei Re'iyah. So people had to wait every 30th day for the Sanhedrin to know, was it Rosh Chodesh or not? So this happens, especially when it comes to Yom Tov of Rosh Hashanah, where they didn't know, will there be Rosh Hashanah on the 30th day of Elul or the 31st day? So they always treated the 30th day and treated it not to do work because it may end up being Rosh Hashanah on that day. Okay? Now, if at the end of the day, the Beis Din added an extra day, then the first day, which they thought was Rosh Hashanah, was really the last day of the previous year. And now, if you've got this business transaction, nowadays Elul is always 29 days. Okay, that's what happens nowadays. But you've got this business transaction, so what have we got? So Hashanah is a part of a Chilka, but Rosh Hashanah, they thought it's Rosh Hashanah, but it turned out it wasn't. If the Beis Din added an extra day, and therefore Rosh Hashanah is the next day, then this was the last day of Elul. So Mashmit, then Shmita comes and cancels the debt. And the Shochet can't ask him for the money, because that day, which he thought was Rosh Hashanah, was not Rosh Hashanah. So the Chayav was before Shmita, the end of Shmita, and got cancelled. In love, if they didn't add an extra day, but they made that day Rosh Hashanah, Eina Mashmit, then it doesn't get cancelled. Because then the Chayav was after the end of Shemitah, which was already the beginning of the 8th year. Various the rapist, the seducer, people have to pay various Beis Din fines based on the Beis Din, and they fix so-and-so has to pay certain amounts of money. Eina Mashmitin, they don't get cancelled. Amabe ala mashken, one who lends with a pledge in place, and most of the Beis Din, you give over your debts to the Beis Din that they should claim on your behalf. Ein Mashmitin, then they don't get cancelled. Right, so the fines don't get cancelled. They're not considered loans. They're not considered debts. Okay? Right. Ashrias Mishabah says, Shrita cancels the debt if it's with a shtar or without a shtar. I understand a debt can be cancelled without a document. But as far as bishtar, the Yasser Kamav al Mashkin is like a debt with a pledge. Shmita shouldn't cancel it. We're talking about a case there was no land designated for the debt. Or Krameir is like the view of Rameir who holds, look, if the Sofer didn't write it in, it means he's not there. So if there's no reference to land of the debtor, Meshubah to the Malva, you don't say, well, really there was, but it was just left out. We don't say that. We say, no, there's a reason why they left it out. They had no intention that there should be any shibud of land as a lien for this debt. And since there's no shibud of kakos, and if the lover will go and sell it to others, the Malva can't start claiming it from other people, from people who may have bought it. It's not considered milval mashkan for this reason. And that's why it gets cancelled in Shemitah. Also, the Rav Yochanan story came before Rav Yochanan. It should be sheyesh b'achas where there was a piece of land. V'harim mishamet. He passed that the debt was cancelled. Not what we've said. He said it is considered milval mashkan. He said it doesn't get cancelled. He said neisha anu lemetim min halacha. You think we learn from Svara? Okay, if there's land, doesn't get cancelled. The Mishnah is talking about where there's a shtar and so on, and it gets cancelled where there's no land. He says, oh no, I said we're going to do that? We're going to actually practically paskin like that? That's because you think it's going to be like that, we're going to paskin like that? It's not logical. He says, I'm worried, maybe even this debt, the Mishnah says it gets cancelled. Another explanation, Rav Yirmiyah, he says the Mishnah is even according to the Chachamim, who say, you know what, if you didn't put the land, really the land is there. The land is the security, even though you didn't write it. And even a shtar, where there's no achrayas nechasim, there's no land according to Rameir. But she'ein lekarka, we're talking about where the debtor has no land of his own. So you can't say the debt is as if it's already claimed. He's got no land. It's not as if there's a pledge in place. And that's why the Mishnah says the debt gets cancelled. If the debtor had land, the debt would not be cancelled. Another opinion, Harav YCD, he says, even the debtor has land, and he writes this land is a lien for this debt, mashmet, it still gets cancelled. Right? Even if he's got land. As for Rabbi Yossi Karab, it's like the view of Rab Dam, Rabbi Babashem Rab, Yichad Lai Karka, if the debtor designated to the Malveh land, a specific piece of land, then Eina Meshamet, it doesn't get cancelled. Lai Amru, that should be Eina Meshamet, Lai Amru Ela Yichad Lai, it's only if he designated land, Haim Lai Yichad Lai, if he didn't designate land, Meshamet, then the debt gets cancelled. Right? Even though that there is land, Achras Nechasim, the lover has land, but at the end of the day, from all land the mother can come and claim that any land he comes to, the lover will push him away and say, "Oh, take from another." So it's not considered claimed, or it's not considered like having a pledge. When he designates a specific piece of land, and the lover can't push away the mother from it, then it's as if it's already claimed, and it's like lending with a pledge. And that's the view like Rabbi Yossi, who said that even if he's got land, the debt would normally be cancelled, right? Unless it's yichad lo, unless he designates this is your land, in such a case the debt is not cancelled. Okay. And Meshabed Sadeh, a husband designates a specific field leishto for his wife to claim a ksuva. V'halach machra, he went and sold to someone else. In raz ligvas mimana misha nechasim gover. She can go and claim from that field or other things belonging to the husband, with her land, with the movable things. So if she wants to go and get other things that he has, she can do so. On Rabila, he passed like the bride, so the woman can claim wherever she wants. Chavraya boy, the Bnei Shiva asked, if he's given her a specific piece of land, and then now she went, sorry, I don't know if I said it made it clear. It's the case of the person has a field and the woman went and sold it to someone else. She went and sold it. This was set aside for her ksuva. She went and sold it, but she can still claim from it, other nechasim, basically, whether it's that field or other nechasim of the husband. And Rav Lazar Paskin like this brisa, that she can claim wherever she wants. Chavraya Bain, so Bnei Yeshiva asked, since he's designated a specific land, then although she sold it, then she should only claim from stuff which was sold. That means that land that he designated for her, and she's gone and sold it. That was the condition of ksuva she'll get from this land. And that tonight won't change to allow her to claim from other Bnei Chorin. She should only get from this land. Rav Yosef, he says, Bnei Chorin for now. Look, if there's other stuff which is not taken up, it's not, but it is Bnei Chorin, not, what's the word again? Not, what's it called? Not, come on, you can help me. Encumbered. Yeah, that's the word. So if there's other stuff which is not encumbered, then why should Vatamra Meshubazin? When you say she should only claim from stuff which is Meshubad, surely if there's non-encumbered stuff, then she should really get from that. Now the Brisa says, if the husband designates a land for the ksuba and she sold it, she can go and claim from it or other else Bnei Chorin of the husband. Masnisa, the Brisa talking about a case with Shalaya Amala, where he never said you won't be paid except from this land. He just said you'll have payment from this land as opposed to stamp. But in Mabala he said you'll only have payment from this land. It's like a specific apoitikid, specific to this land. Then she can only claim from this land, even though she's gone and sold it, and he's got other bnei chayrin. She can only claim from this land. Okay. Now another din with a field which was designated for a debt. You made your a field as a lien, an apoitiki for a debt. And the debtor went, and so the debtor is promising this piece of land as a guarantee for the debt. And what did the debtor do? He went and sold it. Rabacha said, it's sold for a period of time until the creditor comes back and takes it away. And the fruit that he does meanwhile belong to the buyer. Rav Yossi says, no, it's not even sold for a temporary time. It's considered the Malva's Rishus. As soon as it becomes an apotheki, so the debtor can't sell it. It belongs to the Malva now. Right? he's like the Baal Dava now. He can stop the sale. Any fruit, meantime, should go to the seller. When the buyer, the lekech, can't eat them, even if the seller allows him. Because the money that he gave for the field is a milva in the hands of the seller. I mean, eating the fruit, it looks like ribis. Chayle Rabbi Yossi min hada. And the Kach Rabbi Yossi is from the following svara. So that makes sense if a person makes his ox an apotiki and then he goes and sells it, the meches chal and the malva can't go and claim it. And the reason is because Shar Matzah Lavricha, an ox, the lover can make it go away and the malva won't find it. Right? And therefore, the malva doesn't really rely on his shibud on it. You can't say it's in the rishus of the malva, then that should stop the sale because he could get it disappeared and the malva will never find it. But sada, a field will never disappear, right? Sada Edemasa Lavricha. Therefore, the malva relies on that. And it's considered in the rishus of the malva. And that's why he's the Baal Dava, and he can prevent the sale. He can prevent the other person selling it. He says, Agatzmacha. Now, what do you mean the field can't run away? He says, Agatzmacha. How could it be? I tell you, it could be a case. If the field was sold to a mighty person, that you can't argue with him. In this situation, where the lover goes and sells it, the mother gives up hope from claiming it. He's not going to get his shibud from this. Some mighty guy has got hold of it, right? It's like an ox with a seder chal. You're not relying on your shibud because you can cause it to run away from the malva. So basically, based on this, the din of Rabbi Yossi depends on this. You can't cause the field to run away from the malva. So why don't we make a chiluk in this sort of distinction? I mean, what difference? 1 second. If you can't make the field run away, in this situation, the sale should be a valid sale. 1 second. You can't, if you sell the field to a mighty person, where the mother is giving up hope, he's not going to get his shibud. Okay, it's like the ox will run away. The mother's not going to get his shibud. So if it all depends on if the mother is giving up, why don't we make it a chiluk and say, oh, okay, then the sale is chal. Our reviews on Avodah Matani says, even if it was sold to a mighty person, the mother will wait until the guy will fall down again, right? And he's not giving up his shibud. An ox, you can cause the ox to run away, whereas the mighty person, well, something can happen to him. Well, I'll tell you what in the brisa. Our says soda apotiki. One who writes a shtar and he makes a field on apotiki leisha b'ksuva. So a woman owns her ksuva or Baal Choiv boy, or Baal Choiv for his debt. And after that, Machra, the owner of the field, sells it to someone else. Harezu Mechura, it's sold. The purchaser has to worry. So if he bought it from a husband, he has to worry maybe the husband will die or divorce his wife and she'll claim it back. If he bought it from a lover, we're worried maybe the mother will claim it back. So the Brisa says clearly, the field is sold, and that's against Rabbi Yossi, who said that if the person sold the field and he made an apotiki, it's not sold at all. So the Moran says, Masnisa, the Brisa talking about case, but Sha'am Allah, the husband said to his wife, Yehei lach pirayin, claim your ksuva mizu from this field. It's apotiki stam, right? It's not an apotiki mufurish. It's a general apotiki. Claim your ksuva from this field. Okay. So in such a case, the lekeach can remove the woman or the malva with money, and the apotiki is not really in his rishus, and the sale is valid. Ma'aplikin, what's my brings for Rachman Rabbi Yossi? B'sha'am Allah, where he said, La yehei lach pirayin elazu. You won't get paid back only from this field. Right? The apotiki mafurish, that's clearly designated, okay? And then the lekeach can't just push the taveh away with money. Therefore, the apotiki is in the rishus of the taveh, and the sale is not chalatzim. Okay. Now we come back to the laws of Shmitas Ksafim. In which ways does a chayiv of a ksuva zisha get cancelled? Rav says Pagma, if she claims a bit of a ksuva, below zakfa, but she didn't turn the rest into a debt. Or zakfa, if she turned a bit of a ksuva into a debt, afi shaloi Pagma, even though she didn't take anything from the ksuva, so she turned it into a debt, but hasn't actually taken it, then the ksuva becomes a debt and gets cancelled in Shmita. So Rav Chia learns at Brisa, the ksuva doesn't get cancelled, ad shetifka v'tiskoi, until she claims a bit and turns it into a loan. She needs to do both things together, and then it comes out of being a ksuva and it turns into being a loan, and the Shemitah will cancel it. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, we said a Rishon. He says when you get credit in the shop, the first time is proper credit. The second time it becomes a loan. He says, Mneishu Makiv Lo B'Kam Shniya. That's Rishon Bilva. Because you ask credit a second time, the first one becomes a debt. So in order to answer this question, the Gemara brings a bit of the discussion later on, where we ask a stira. Now, at the beginning, the Mishnah says Shvius doesn't cancel a debt of a shop, right? Because it's not really a malveh, it's a chayiv, it's a business transaction. After that, the Mishnah says when you slaughter the ox on Rosh Hashanah, on Motzei Shvius, you divide it up to people. Then it turns out actually it was the 30th Elul, and the next day is Rosh Hashanah. Then the debt, which was higher for the meat, which was shechted. Now, why is it any different to credit? A chayiv of credit doesn't get cancelled. So why, when you're giving out the meat, why does that get cancelled? Right? They all got meat, and we're saying right, their debt gets cancelled. Why is it any different to being money on credit in the shop? That doesn't get cancelled. The Gemara answers, Rav Lazar. Rav Lazar, the din of the Mishnah about the ox that was slaughtered in Rosh Hashanah and divided up, Rabbi Yehuda, is the words of Rabbi Yehuda, who said in our Mishnah, with credit, that each time you take a new credit, the previous one becomes a debt, right? So in the situation you're giving out meat in Rosh Hashanah, after you gave out meat, you went and sold other foods on that day with credit, and therefore the earlier credit becomes the debt, according to Yehuda, and that's why Shvius cancels it. Now another question on the one who slaughters a parah and divides on Rosh Hashanah. Now could you start claiming from the purchasers the money of the meat by Rosh Hashanah? You can't start asking for debts to be paid back on Rosh Hashanah. Since the owner of the cow can believe and trust the purchaser, he's relying on him, right? Roy Latavai is considered fitting that he can claim for his money, even though he can't actually do it because of Kedushas Yom Tov. He's fitting to ask for his money. Since he trusts him, and he sees the debt, even without any claims, it's as if he's asking for his money now, even at the time where he can't do it because there's an Issa Yom Tov. So the Chayiv is included in La Yigais, and Shemitah will cancel it. Now the Gemara explains why, according to Yehuda, the debt becomes a debt when you take meat with credit a second time. Since he's fitting for you to claim the debt, even on Yom Tov, it's considered Kamishu Rai Litan Lemois. He's fitting as if the Lekeach will pay back to the owner of the cow his debt when he takes a credit a second time. He says on the weekday, you don't usually give a credit a second time until they pay the previous credit. So Yom Tov as well is fitting to claim the debt, despite the fact that you can't actually do it. Therefore, the Roy Litzvaya, the fitting to claim that he's going to pay, is like giving him credit a second time. By doing that a second time without actually taking any money for the first time, he's turning that original credit into a debt, and therefore it changes to become a debt and it gets cancelled in Shemitah. Okay? Now we see the reason of Yehuda with the shop credit of a car. So when you have a credit in a shop, when the seller sells another time, however, it's fitting to give the seller money for the first credit. But he didn't give him. Right? You don't usually give someone credit a second time before you pay the first time. Now this is Rishona Milva. So the first credit becomes like a debt, and Shemitah cancels it. Rabbi Yossi says, any job which would stop when Shemitah comes in gets cancelled. Rabbi Yechon said, begin Harisha. This kavod is for reward you'll get for ploughing. The one who hires is chayav to stop the ploughing during Shemitah, because Harisha and Shemitah is forbidden. Okay. He said begin binyan. It's because of the melacha building is permitted on Shemitah. Maybe let's say he finished its work. 1 second. Is that where we are? Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Is that where we are? Rish Lakish begin binyan. So basically he's saying there's building work which is permitted during Shemitah. He just finished it. What is he saying here? This one's happened. Yeah. Okay. So he says like this. Rish Lakish holds a worker, right? It's not really, the moment that the Balabais has to pay him, he asks for his money. If he doesn't ask, it turns into a debt. And Riyos Mechalek, even a malacha which is permitted during Shemitah, and then you have malachas which stopped before Shemitah, where the time where the Shemitah Ksofim is applying, there's a difference between malacha which finishes after Shemitah or before. If it carries on after Shemitah, then you're not yet chayav at the end of the 7th year. The Sheviis is always at the end, right? The end of the year is when the obligation comes in. So the chiyuv to pay for work is only when you finish the job. Okay, that's what it says here. And if Sheviis, the chiyuv of to finish, to pay off, never came about, then it's not turned into a loan. It remains a chayiv, which is not cancelled. Okay, let's carry on. Al-Dad Rabbi Yochanan. Now let's look at the lashon of Rabbi Yossi. That any malach which stops at Sheviis. So there's two opinions here. So what we got? So one opinion said, what are the reasons for this? Rabbi Yochanan said, begin charisha, that the problem was ploughing. You have to refrain from working during Shemitah because ploughing is forbidden, right? And that's why it's chal malacha which stops at Shemitah because of the ploughing. And Rav Shimon ben Lakish said, begin binyan, that it's because of building that work is permitted, but you've sort of finished it during the Shemitah year. So let's see what they say. So Ma Rabbi Yossi now. So 1 second. Adan to Rabbi Yochanan. According to Rabbi Yochanan, any job that finishes because it's a Sheviis, that's what it's referring to. Adan to Rish Lakish. It means any job that finishes of its own accord, nothing to do with Shemitah. You just finish the job. When it says b'Shvius, because probably you finished your job, your permitted work, within the 7th year, as opposed to work carrying on till Motzi Sheviis, then Shemitah would not stop the wage. Now the Gemara continues in the view of Rabbi Yossi. So Rabbi Yossi was the one who said, about ploughing. So Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, does he hold like Rabbi Yehuda? Rabbi Yossi he said, if it stops during Shemitah, right, Mashmetes, then Shemitah cancels it. If he doesn't, he doesn't cancel it. Now the reason is, when it finished doing work, and you hire workers, right, and they want their wage, and this person he's not asking for the wage. He's basically turning the wage into a debt. That's what Rabbi Yehuda says, it's like a second credit. And since people ask for their first credit, and he's not asking for his first credit, he's basically turning it into a debt. And therefore Rabbi Yossi holds like Rabbi Yehuda with this credit that's given in a shop. So you want to say Rabbi Yossi is like Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, let me just see the notes here. Yeah, Rabbi Yossi is like Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says anything stops on Shemitah, doesn't stop on Shemitah. And Rabbi Yossi, you're not asking for the debt, aren't you? There's a credit, and you're just taking credit again. The Gemara doesn't like this idea. Rabbi Yossi remains with the maskana. He says the Gemara doesn't actually push it away, but it stays with the maskana. Yes, Rabbi Yossi is like Rabbi Yehuda. And the Gemara continues. Belai Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold like Rabbi Yossi. So which way round is it? Rabbi Yossi holds like Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold like Rabbi Yossi. So let's see who said what. So Rabbi Yehuda said, when you've got a credit in a shop, it turns into a debt when you borrow a second time. You hear that? When you take credit a second time, it becomes a debt. That's one thing. Now, as far as a labourer, he holds, even if you don't really arrange from doing the work, it's considered like a debt. The money, the wage that is owed is considered like a debt. Right? Not like Rabbi Yossi, who says it depends if they arranged a wage or not, if they were posek, if they made an agreement or not. That's what Rabbi Yossi holds. So the Mishnah in Shavuos, actually brought in the bubbly, says Rabbi Yehuda holds, it's not the way of someone, let's say a money changer. You don't give a big coin before you take the small coins from someone who comes to change it. So same with the schar sachar, with a worker. You're not going to start working before you get your wage. If you do work without asking first for your wage, you're showing that you're turning it into a debt of the balabais. The fact that you haven't asked for your wage up front means you're turning it into a debt. So that's what he says. But that Lo Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Yossi is not Rabbi Yossi. But then the Gemara says no. Even though Rabbi Yehuda said Ein derech hashulchan Elias Naisen Isar She'ital Dinner. Look, the money changer is not going to give the big coin until he takes the small coins. But Maida, who b'schar sacher, he agrees with the worker she'eina ela basof. He only gets paid at the end. His money comes at the end. So Rabbi Yehuda holds the sacher is like Rabbi Yossi. As long as he's not yet made an agreement from doing the work, he's not turning his wage into a debt, and Shemitah will not cancel it. Okay, let's come back to our slaughtering of the cow, right? And we don't know what day it is, right? So one who slaughters the cow and gives it out Rosh Hashanah. So if Elul ended up with an extra day, so that wasn't Rosh Hashanah, the true Rosh Hashanah was the next day, then the debt gets cancelled. Now pushing Rosh Hashanah to the 30th day, or 31st day, so we bring a price. So Rabbi Yehuda, Nisan Lainis Abba Miyama. So Chodesh Nisan was never pushed away to be holy on the 31st day of Adar. It was always the 30th day. You hear that? There was always one day of Rosh Chodesh Nisan, which is what we have today as well. Nisan is one day of Rosh Chodesh on the 30th day. Okay. But now we've learnt in Shkalim. Now remember, all the half shekels are being collected. If they come in their proper time, the treasurers would be Torah Mesalishka. Remember, they take the money out of the various boxes on the first day of Nisan, and they would use the new Shkalim for buying the new Korbanos, the new Ketoras. And the Mishnah says if the new money came in its time, they would use it on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. So it sounds like we finished the 30 days of claiming. They went 30 days campaigning for money, right? Asking for money. That started 1st of Adar. And that must be, Adar had 30 days. So that means Rosh Chodesh Nisan must have been holy on day 31. Because they've been asking for money for 30 days. That means Adar had 30 days. But you told me Nisan only has one day, and therefore it was always the 30th day was Rosh Chodesh Nisan. But now we're saying it sounds like it was the 31st day. So what's going on? And that goes against Rebbe, who says Rosh Chodesh Nisan was never pushed away. It was always the 30th day. So the Gemara answers, Imba, if they had the new money on the 30th day, and if it was before the 1st of Nisan, so if it would have happened, it may never have happened, but if it would have happened, that the month of Adar was Maleh and had 30 days, then the Gizbarim would take from the Trumas Alishka on the 1st of Nisan, and bring on that day from the new money. Lemaisa loiba. The new truma never reached. The new money never reached before the 1st of Nisan, because Adar was always chaser. It was always 29 days, like Rebbe. You never had 30 days, like the question which we asked. Now we want to say similarly with the coming to Rosh Hashanah. Rav Amar Tishri Lodis Abba Miyama. He said also Rosh Chodesh Tishri, which is Rosh Hashanah, was never pushed to day 31. It was always on day 30. Which is what we have. It's always day 30. But Tanina, we learned our Mishnah, if Elul had an extra day. So you see, it could happen. And Rosh Chodesh might have been on day 31. So the Gemara answers, Im Haya, you're right. If Elul had an extra day, then you're right. That's right. But the Ma'aseh said, Lo Haya, never happened. But we learned in a brayso, when they sanctified the year, they decided on New Year, B'Yom HaRishon, first day of Rosh Hashanah, he stood up as a chazan in Musaf. He said the brachas of Tefillah kedivra Rav Yechon Nuri, like Rav Yechon. That means he added Malchus in the third bracha, Malchus in the third. It didn't blow shofar in that bracha, only in the fourth one, which was Kiddush Sayom. So they followed this dinner of Yechon Nuri, and Rav Shem Gamliel Lo Hayinu Nagin Ken B'Yavna. We didn't do this in Yavna, and Bayom Hasheni, on the second day, Avai was Chazan again with Musaf. Rav Hanani ben Oshel basically, he said the brachos Gediv Rabbi Akiva. He said the brachos like the view of Rabbi Akiva, so he added Malchus in bracha 4, not bracha 3, and they blew shofar in that bracha. Shem Gamliel, he said, Kena Yidun Nogim B'Yavna. That's what we used to do. I'll tell you that's in the Brisa Kitru Barishon V'Sheni. They kept Kedushas Yom Tov Rosh Hashanah 2 days. And we Kaddish the Chodesh Tishri on the 30th day, 31st day of Elul, 30th day and 31st. And that's not like Rav who said it never happened. But we're saying it did happen. So the Gemara answers Rav Zira of Shem Rav Chisda, Oisav Shana Niskalkala. That year they made a mistake. After they kept 1 day Rosh Hashanah, it turned out they made a mistake in the reckoning. And that day was fitting to be the 29th of Elul. And therefore they kept Rosh Hashanah an additional day, which was really the 30th day. So in that year, Rosh Hashanah was on the 30th of Elul, right? And they weren't Mekadosh Day 31. Basically, they made a mistake. They'd gone forward a day somehow, right? That's the answer the Gemara gives. I mean, he asked over here, so if you keep 2 days Yom Tov of Rosh Hashanah, it still doesn't show that Elul was Mole. I mean, nowadays we follow a fixed Luach. Elul is always 29 days, and we still keep Rosh Hashanah 2 days. Right, that's what we do. It doesn't mean Elul's Mole when you keep 2 days, because we have Elul L'Chasa. Elul is 29 days, and we still keep 2 days. The reason is, when Kiddush HaChodesh depends on the Beis Din, most people don't know. Did Beis Din Mekadosh the moon on Tishri on the 30th of Elul, 31st day, right? The messengers couldn't get out so far because of Tchumen. So Misafek they kept 2 days, even in Eretz Yisrael. But it's still a question on Rabbi says the place is close to Beis Din. I mean, they would know what was going on. Maybe they only kept it 1 day. It basically says if they kept it 2 days in Usha, when the Sanhedrin were there, it must be they added a day to the month of Elul. It's not because we didn't really know which day it was. They knew which day it was, and they still kept 2 days. All right, let's go back to our Gemara then. So Rav Zira says in Rav Chisda, they made a mistake in the Cheshbon. So after they kept 1 day Rosh Hashanah, it turned out that really it was fitting to be the 29th of Elul. Okay, Rabbi said you may remember one of the Kolim Yerushalmi often refers to making mistakes in numbers and dates. Right? Yerushalmi refers to, remember the Churban Bayis? And they couldn't remember what dates it was if those who learned Yerushalmi Tanis, where the Novi says one thing, and like they made a mistake on the dates. Was it the 19th? Was it the 9th? Was it the 17th of the first Churban? And they couldn't work out they'd lost a few days in their calculations because the Churban, the Yerushalmi refers to that. Now, Ma ben Arish and Ma ben Hasheni. What does the Brisa mean? The first day and the second day. Ribbon Shem Rav. It doesn't mean 2 days in that year. The Shana Rishayna and Shana Shnia. What it means is, on 1 day of Rosh Hashanah in 1 year, Yishmael got up as a chazan. So it's not that it was 2 days, he was chazan 2 days running. No. He was chazan that day and then a year later that day. Right? And on that day of Rosh Hashanah next year, he was a chazan and he followed Rabbi Akiva's view. So we said, where did he put Malchus, right? Bracha 3 or Bracha 4. It wasn't in the same year. It was day 1 1 year and day 1 the next year. But they always kept 1 day on the 30th of Elul, and that's like Rav, that Tishri never had extra days. Well, Tzadipi says it's first day and second day. Sounds like the same year. Yom Rish and Yom Hasheni. Sounds like right next to each other, not 2 separate years. Very good question. So the Gemara therefore only accepts the Teretz of Zeira, the name of Chisda, that basically they mucked up, they messed up their calculations. Right? And they thought it was 30th and really it was the 29th. Okay? Right, okay. Kichu Koydem Lizmana. Now we bring a brisa about Kiddush HaChodesh. Oh, okay. Let's just see where we get a few more lines. Kichu Koydem Lizmana. If the Beis Din will Mekadosh the Chodesh before the fitting time, or day after the Ma'abed the Chodesh Yom Echad. So that was a bit later. Chodesh Iburai is sometimes 29 days, Chodesh Chaser, or 30 days, Chodesh Ma'uba. Right? You can make it the 30th day or the 31st. So Bismana is on day 30. Okay, Ibura is usually day 31. Okay, so if they did that, now will it work? So if they did it premature, day 29, or they did it 32, does that help? No. Yachal Yemur, B'Kodesh Talmud Levit says no. Oisam, Ele Moed Hashem Oisam. Oisam, those festivals that you have in the fitting times, Ele Moed. But Livnei's Mana, if it's too premature, you know, and you know, if you do it too late, Ein Ele Moed. That's not the proper time for the festivals. Livnei's Mana, that means you made the new moon on Esrei Tishri day 29. La'achei Burai was Shloshim Mishnayim Yom, day 32. But Menayim Shema'abrin is Hashana. How do we know we add a month for the Goliath? It's we add a month for the Goliath because of the Yehudim in the Goyla. Sheyad, so they left their house to be Ola Regel, to bring Kom Pesach. But they're not yet arrived. That's why the Torah says Bnei Sol Moedai. We want to give to teach you Ases on Moedas Shiyaso Osem Kalisol. We want all the people to be able to fulfill all the festivals. So this Ma'abrin, Ma'abrin is Hashanah. Yeah, we're adding Adar Sheni. It's for the Goliaths. Why? I suppose they're going a long way away. It says here in the notes, if people are staying on the way and they can't reach Yerushalayim in the fitting time, they'll add Adar Sheni that year to allow people to arrive. And if they don't add an extra Adar, the Bnei Gola won't reach in time. And we're worried those years they won't bother to come and bring the Kom Pesach. It sounds like only for the people of Bnei Gola we add an extra month. Not necessarily for the Toshrei Eretz Yisrael. The Mishnah in Tanis says within 15 days everyone reaches Nahar Pras, right? Which is the furthest distance. Therefore, the end of Chodesh Adar, people could still arrive in time. So it doesn't seem to fit in with the Gemara over there in Tanis. Last two lines, and that which we said, the Bnei Gola can arrive at Nahar Pras with the extra month. But if at the end of the month they can't reach Nahar Pras, there's no reason to add a month in that year, because even so they're not going to reach Yerushalayim anyway to be on time for bringing Kom Pesach. Okay, Rabbi, time.